We have seen how different data structures work. We started with list, set, dictionary. We then studied how numpy array can work, how we can use that for various purpose. Now, a very important thing that you should know before we proceed for the machine learning and artificial intelligence part, that is the object oriented feature of Python language. So this particular word, object oriented, for some people may be new, for some people it is already known. But what exactly object oriented programming or object oriented concept means? Remember that in case of C language or other languages, previously what you have went through, we just had some, we just wrote some program with variables, we just created variables and all. That's all. But in case of object oriented programming or object oriented environment, the you know it is always considered that everything that physically exists is considered as an object. What does it mean? So let's take an example first. For example, like I or you, we all are some human being. We all individually exist in our own space, and we all are basically all object. Those which can physically exist is an object. Now, if you compare my behavior with you, I mean, there you will see a lot of similarities you can find in between our I mean you and me. For example, both of us have two hands, two legs. Both of us have some particular similar shape of body and many other similarities, right? So that means we both individually, although we both individually exist, we actually have a common blueprint from where we came. And that common blueprint, you can say we all are basically Homo sapiens, right? Now, that blueprint is actually called class. So I'm not going into a bookish definition for you for understanding how we can apply object oriented concept in Python. I'm just trying to convey you what this object and what it means and what is class. There is two concepts, object and class. What is object? Whoever is physically exists. And what is class? The class is the blueprint of the object. That means, for example, there is a, say for example, mm, mm, an apartment, okay, an apartment having a lot of, for example, a complex having lot of apartments. You will see all the apartments shape is same in the complex. Their height is same, their shape is same, but the apartments exist in their own space. But all these apartments have the same blueprint. Based on that, the apartment was designed. Similarly, the concept of object and class also. Now, what is the, you can say, what is the um, benefit we can get if I go for object oriented programming? Actually, there are a lot of different benefits. I mean, we can have. For example, we can reuse the code. We can apply a lot of securities in the code, and many other things is there. So one by one, in very short, study that I will come. Okay. So the very important feature of object oriented is four things. So if I just write the features of object oriented programming, so just a minute. So I'm writing object oriented programming feature. Sometimes it is also called in short OOP. OOP. Okay. The first one is called inheritance. What is inheritance? You see, as I told you that I am an object, you are an object, that means our parent is also an object. Now, if you compare the behavior, your thought process with your parent, you will see there is some similarities present, right? So, how you have got the same characteristic? This is what actually we call that you have inherited some properties of your parent to you. That means if you consider that your parents, you know, say for example, if you assume that if you keep your parent in a class and you in a different class, that means some property of a class can be inherited to the another classes. If you inherit the property, it means that you are acquiring the properties from him. For example, you have acquired some feature, some behavior, some thought process from your parent. And in addition to that, you also have some of the features which is totally new, some habit or something like that, which is not present in your parent side, but you have got that. So that's your own part, that's your own feature, but some feature which comes from the ancestor. That is what we call inheritance. Now next one is called polymorphism. You see, the name is given by these two words. One is poly. Poly means more than one. That means, for example, suppose you have your sibling. Okay, you have a sibling, and both of you have a common parent. So naturally, if I say that you are inheriting some property, if you inherit, then also your sibling also inherits in the same way. So those property should be common to you and your parent, your sibling. I mean, same exactly behave like same, but it doesn't happen always. For example, in a very layman, example, I'm saying that for example, maybe you are right-handed, but your sibling is left-handed. So the way of writing, the behavior that you are doing is not exactly same of your sibling. That means writing behavior, if I say, have two different form in two different object of same class, because you and your sibling belongs to same class. This particular property is called in polymorphism. There are two different way by which we can implement this polymorphism. One we call overloading, method overloading, and one we call method overriding. Similarly, the third one, I will go through an example of all these different type of code so that you can understand what's actually happening. Anyway, the third one is encapsulation. What does it mean? You see, the name is given encapsulation. What is capsule means what? Actually, maybe most of you have have an experience to take capsules if you have some fever or something like that, some medical issue. You have taken capsules. And have you seen what the capsule look like? It's something like a it's a black box. The capsule is not the medicine. The medicine present within the capsule, right? So what that capsule does? That capsule actually protects the medicine from the outer world. The same thing is over here. Like for example, assume that human being is a class, and this human being has several properties. What are the properties? The properties is its hand is a property. Okay, let's take one more more real life example. Suppose car is a class. Okay, car. It's a very generic word. Car. Now car can be of different type, right? So car is a class where there will be a property number of wheel. There will be a property say the type of engine, or maybe many more properties can be there, right? Now, and also there will be some feature or some function of that car, like how the car will run. That is not a property. How the car will run is basically a behavior that has to be implemented using those properties. Using properties means, for example, using wheel. Now, this car class is a very generic class. Car can be of different type. So, you will have to have a class for two-wheeler, separate class for two-wheeler, a separate class for four-wheelers, a separate class for very large vehicles like trucks. You see, you cannot say that a two-wheeler and a four-wheeler should remain in the same class. It's not possible. Why? Because the number of wheel will vary. The way of the way of behavior of the two-wheeler and four-wheeler will vary. The different components will vary. But there is something is common. Some part is common, definitely, right? In two-wheeler and four-wheeler. Some properties are common. That means you can declare a car class having those general properties, and then you can inherit those general properties into a class of two-wheelers, into a class of four-wheelers, into a class of, say for example, large vehicles like trucks. After acquiring those properties from general class to a specific class, what you can do? You can change the features, the way of, say for example, way of run or something like that of a vehicle. You can change by your own way. That means the way by which a two-wheeler will go is not same as the way by which a four-wheeler will go. So that means you'll have both two-wheeler class and four-wheeler class are came from the car class, but the behavior of run is different. So that is what actually polymorphism is. Now what the encapsulation is here? The encapsulation means you are storing the feature, the property, all into a single unit which I am calling as a class. That is what we call encapsulation. So we are protecting the data and the methods within a black box, and that black box is called class or object. That is what we call encapsulation. Now the last one, the last one that we have is called abstraction. What is abstraction? For example, if I tell you that suppose that you have lift in your apartment, okay, so what do? You just you press some button, the lift door opens, you enter in the lift, you press a button where you want to go, again lift will stop over there. You just you just use that. You are pressing some buttons, so you are using some components of the AC. I'm sorry, components of the lift, and you are doing nothing. You are not interested exactly when you are pressing a button how the electrical signal is passing from one component to another component of the lift. You are not looking at that, right? That means if I assume that lift is an object, obviously lift will be an object because lift physically exists. So in the language of object oriented programming, if I consider lift is an object, as a user, the way by which a lift is working is hidden from you, right? This is what we call abstraction. That means we are using an object. I mean, you are when you are creating an object-oriented programming feature in your program or in your application, that means you are giving an object to the users to play with. The users are only playing with the features of the object from outside, giving inputs and getting outputs. But you are not, you know, you are you are basically hiding the way they are actually giving output to the user. So you are this is what we call abstraction. Now this feature is common to any object oriented programming language. For example, not only Python, Java is also an object oriented programming language. C# is also an object oriented programming language. So any object oriented programming language follows these four basic properties or features. Now I'll not go in very much detail of this because not so much required. Just I'll go through how we can implement this inheritance or overloading or overriding, how to create a class and do and all these things. Now